が心と行動に一点の曇りなし。すべてが正義だ。ドジャーンドジャーンドジャーン、一体何のつもりなんだ。遺体はこのバレンタインのことを
There's a little Japanese anime to kick off your Tuesday. I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It's July 16th, 2024. As always, live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and locals. Yesterday was our, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was our #1 live stream day ever across channels. Yeah, hot diggity dog, people. I guess it is true that the world is perhaps getting a little more sane after, let's say, an extended period of craziness. Anyway, as always, we've got a post-game wrap-up show, rubinreport.locals.com, and I will be on Piers Morgan's show, I think, at noon Eastern this afternoon. The theme of the show today is fairly obvious. The Republican National Convention is happening right now in Milwaukee, and not only did Donald Trump appear there with a bandaged ear, but they did make the VP selection. It is JD Vance, Senator from Ohio. And of course, what this really brings about now is, what does this do for the future of the party? There's always the constant debate: how much does a VP actually swing votes? Does it really matter? I would say in this case, with all of the craziness that we've been going through for the last couple of years, with the cases against Trump and the potential jailing of Trump, which is largely off the table now. We'll get to that in just a second. But just with the, the assassination attempt over the weekend, if you remember that, that this time the VP really does matter. And of course, I think there were major arguments to be made about ways that you could go in and expanding the party, say with a former Democrat like Tulsi, or even making a real jump with someone like an RFK Jr. Trump went right to the base. And by the way, I think JD is a good man. I've interviewed him a couple times. We're going to go to some throwback clips. And I think that we will now see what that does for the longevity of MAGA, and this, more importantly, I would say, this upcoming election in November. Real quick, before we get to any of that, we didn't even get to cover this yesterday, but here, a tweet from Greg Price yesterday. I mean, this is absolutely huge, and I guess Trump will not end up in jail. Breaking: Judge Aileen Cannon has dismissed the Trump classified documents case, saying that Jack Smith's appointment to Biden's Department of Justice was unconstitutional. So let's just leave that there for now, because I want to get into the VP stuff. But even the cases against Trump seem to be crumbling, and I would say that that is largely good. We are seeing a complete sort of transformation of our political landscape right now, and our media landscape and everything else. And that's really where I want to focus today. So of course, here's the big news from Colin Rugg. Breaking: Donald Trump announces that Senator JD Vance is his VP pick. The announcement was made on Truth Social, and I do want to read Trump's Truth Social post. After lengthy deliberation and thought, and considering the tremendous talents of many others, I have decided that the person best suited to assume the position of Vice President of the United States is the Senator JD Vance of the great state of Ohio. JD honorably served our country in the Marine Corps, graduated from Ohio State University in 2 years, summa cum laude, and is a Yale Law School graduate, where he was editor of the Yale Law Journal and president of the Yale Law Veterans Association. JD's book, Hillbilly Elegy, became a major bestseller and movie, and as it championed the hardworking men and women of our country. JD has had a very successful business career in technology and finance, and now, during the campaign, will be strongly focused on the people he fought so brilliantly for the American workers and farmers in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Minnesota, and far beyond. As Vice President, JD will continue to fight for our Constitution, stand with our troops, and do everything he can to help me make America great again. Congratulations to Senator JD Vance, his wife Usha, who also graduated from Yale Law School, and their 3 beautiful children. MAGA 2024. Okay, so real quick on the specifics of choosing somebody right from the base. Nobody knew what he was going to do beforehand. I'm telling you, like, I know largely everyone in these worlds, the insiders and the people in MAGA world and the people in media world, and the texts and the signal messages, and everybody was going crazy right before. I was getting messages from people, like reliable people, right before, like an hour before the announcement, going, it's going to be RFK. He's meeting him right now. They're working out the final details. I had some people who all along were saying it's JD. He's just going in that direction, and the assassination attempt to basically solidify that. There were a lot of people. It sounds like Marco Rubio was the other guy, so it was the last two were JD and Marco. There were a lot of people saying that Marco would get the Nikki people, and that was about 20% of the party, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the point is, Trump just does what Trump thinks is right. And we now will see what that does for expanding the party, right? So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I was screaming for JD this entire time. Obviously, I felt that Tulsi was the best way to go because it helps you bring in all of those disaffected Dems, those new people, let's say middle class, women who maybe have a little bit more of an aversion to Trump. So you guys get it. You guys get it. But I do want to show you this tweet that I put up right before. So this is about an hour before, as my phone's blowing up with all sorts of people telling me all sorts of things. I wrote this, Trump's VP thought. So we don't have the tweet, so I'm just going to read it for you. My argument was, JD, what does it do? It solidifies the MAGA base for the future, especially in light of an assassination attempt. Marco Rubio brings back some of the more traditional Republicans. Tulsi opens up party to disaffected Democrats. RFK, alliance to destroy modern Democrat Party, changes equation altogether. Burgum has bushy eyebrows. So that was my calculation right beforehand. Phoenix showed me this image right before we started the show. Look at this, just if you want to see how far the Republican Party has come. That's obviously Mitt Romney with his VP choice, Paul Ryan, what is that, 12 years ago now. And in 12 years, the party has completely shifted. When you see those two guys on the top, what you're seeing largely are kind of two, let's say, not very effective conservatives or Republicans. Mitt Romney, who's now a, kind of like moderate, I know it says an R next to his name, but moderate Democrat, basically senator from Utah, and Paul Ryan, who is out of politics and kind of is a laughingstock of the Republican Party in many ways. And Donald Trump, whether you like it or not, I largely do like it, has completely reshaped the Republican Party. Now, of course, Donald Trump is almost 80 years old. He just got shot and is missing part of his ear, which almost feels like yesterday's news already. Like it feels like it happened a way long time ago. And you can just see Trump is just going to, like the freaking train from hell that he is just going to keep plowing forward through all of this. But he has now chosen JD Vance to potentially be the next leader of MAGA. So here is a compilation of some of JD Vance's debate and interview skills.
The thing the media and Congressman Ryan, they talk about this all the time. The thing they never mentioned is that poor girl was raped by an illegal alien, somebody that should have never been in this state in the first place. When the media and people like Tim Ryan accuse me of engaging in the great replacement theory, I'll tell you exactly what happens, Tim. What happens is that my own children, my biracial children, get attacked by scumbags online and in person because you are so desperate for political power that you'll accuse me, the father of 3 beautiful biracial babies, of engaging in racism. We are sick of it. You can believe in a border without being a racist. You can believe in the country without being a racist. And this just shows how desperate this guy is for political power.
I think it takes a special amount of gall to be from Joe Biden's political party and to complain about the fentanyl crisis that is ravaging not just Ohio, but the entire country, because it is Joe Biden's border policies that have invited this fentanyl into our country at record levels.
It explains that wife, the word wife, is an example of the type of language that we need to eliminate. And I'm just asking if that's something you think is necessary or something you support.
I'd have to give that one some more thought.
What is the first truly Islamist country that will get a nuclear weapon? And we were like, maybe it's Iran, maybe Pakistan already kind of counts. And then we sort of finally decided maybe it's actually the UK, since Labour just took over.
Okay, so that's just a bunch of bites over the years. That last piece from the NatCon convention, that's just a couple days ago. He's largely in line with Trump on sort of more of an isolationist foreign policy, which I agree with, but he believes in peace through strength, which is obviously a Reagan idea. And I think that will suit him quite well in this election, especially as it pertains to Ukraine and everything else. Here's just a nice moment if you want to just see a little more sort of behind the scenes of JD Vance. This is him with Sean Hannity last night at the convention. Just a little more personal for a moment.
What was it like? Because the last couple of days, well, it's down to 2, you and Senator Rubio. What was that like for you?
You know, I just tried to enjoy the ride. What an honor to be considered. If it had been Senator Rubio, obviously Marco's a good guy, he's a good friend. So I try to just have a good attitude about it. You know, my family's very excited, obviously asking a lot of questions. I will say, Sean, I hope I'm not betraying too many confidences here, but when the president called me today to actually formally offer me to become, the vice presidential nominee, which just sounds crazy. My son, my 7-year-old son, was sort of making noise in the background. I'm getting so embarrassed. It's like, oh my God, Donald Trump's asking me to be his vice president.
So the phone rings, he calls you, and you're like, okay, this is the call, or maybe not the call.
Or maybe it's a bad call, right? It's the call. Who knows whether it's good or bad? But then he actually has me put my 7-year-old son on the phone. You think about this. Everything that's happened, the guy just got shot at a couple of days ago, and he takes the time to talk to my 7-year-old. It's a moment I'll never forget.
All right. And what did he actually say?
He just said, look, I think we've got to go save this country. I think you're the guy who can help me in the best way. You can help me govern. You can help me win. You can help me in some of these Midwestern states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and so forth. And he said rightfully that we have been very, very close for a long time, but especially since I endorsed you in 2022. And I would not have won that race without Donald Trump's endorsement. And the president's trust then and his partnership since then has been something I value a great deal.
Okay, so you can see what Trump sees in him, right? He can speak off the cuff. He can talk a little bit about personal life. In the previous clips that we just showed you, he knows how to fight the media. He knows how to fight his political opponents. Again, this will sort of boil down to, can he expand the party? But it absolutely, without question, when I saw the tweet come across, I was doing cardio yesterday, I saw the tweet come across and I was like, oh, of course, it makes sense. It wasn't exactly what I was going for, but it absolutely makes sense. What's also interesting about it is that he was radically against Trump the first time around. In 2015, leading into 2016, he said some pretty horrible things about Donald Trump, and you can see already the media is going after him for that. Like, what a sellout, that's what he really believes. But he's had an interesting political evolution, and as someone that had a very public political evolution, I get that, and I think it's largely connected probably to many of you guys watching this right now. So we'll talk about that in just a second, but let me tell you guys about Lumen. Guys, your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food you eat into fuel that keeps you going. Because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does, optimal metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep, etc. This is where Lumen comes in. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath, and on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs, gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workout, sleep, and even stress management. It can also track your cycle as well as the onset of menopause and adjust your recommendations to keep your metabolism healthy through hormonal shifts so you can keep your energy and stave off cravings. So if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/Rubin to get 15% off your Lumen, or just click the link below. That's lumen.me/Rubin for 15% off your purchase. And now back to me. Okay, so let me read you the tweet that I put up right after I saw the decision that Donald Trump made. Again, I had just posted, here are Donald Trump's choices, and then I put this up. This is a picture of JD and I. This is a little over a year ago in DC. And I wrote, congrats to JD Vance. JD is clearly a solid choice. The base loves him. Solid conservative record. Finally, a millennial in the game, understands social media, unafraid to pick the right fights. Can he help expand the party? We'll see, but on paper makes total sense. You know, I should mention, because he is a millennial, I'm always talking about how they should be going more towards the Gen X people. He's 39 years old. I'm 48. Like, that seems crazy to me, that someone 8 years younger than me at this point could now be vice president, but I suppose that's just what happens as you get older. But the point is, the youth part of this is good. Maybe we're getting past the gerontocracy that we have been stuck in, right? Maybe we're getting past the point where we're going to be heading to a new world with AI and technological advancements we can't even imagine yet, and everything else, and we won't be led to that world by a bunch of people in their 80s. Now, I want to address how JD is not a typical MAGA conservative. He has had a political evolution. And you can see the media going after him for this, and he's facing it head on, which is exactly what you have to do. Here he is talking about some of the things he has said about Donald Trump in the past.
Yeah, well, I think the simple answer is you've got to respect the American people enough to just level with them. Look, I was wrong about Donald Trump. I didn't think he was going to be a good president, Brett. He was a great president, and it's one of the reasons why I'm working so hard to make sure he gets a second term. I think you should. When you're wrong about something, you should change your mind and be honest with people about that fact. And I actually think, again, whether this is running as his running mate or running and supporting him as United States Senator, Brett, I think it actually presents a real opportunity to talk to the American people, because a lot of people didn't think Trump was going to be a good president, and a lot of people were happy to be proven wrong. And I think it presents an opportunity for me to make the case to the American people that, look, we have two very different sets of results. 4 years of Joe Biden, 4 years of Donald Trump. We know the Trump record is one of success. The Biden record is one of failure. I came around to Donald Trump, and I think that a lot of Americans will do the exact same thing.
So look, there is video out there, and you're going to be seeing it on mainstream media all the time, of tweets of his and video of his saying that Donald Trump is Hitler and all of the stuff. So like, he really was in that camp. But the mea culpa, when you can say, I was wrong, I now look at the results, right? I got 4 years of a Trump presidency, particularly the 2+ years before COVID, and now I have the results of 4 years of a Biden presidency plus the cognitive stuff and everything else. Like, if you're an impartial person or you're just a somewhat thinking person, you know, we all know which one of those was better, right? We just all know in terms of what's going on globally, in terms of our economy, in terms of our border, et cetera, et cetera. But there's going to be a ton of people that are not going to let this go, that somehow he has sold out or something like that. I found this is a completely random person, but I thought this tweet was quite good. It's just a girl by the name of Erica Sanzi on Twitter. She retweeted that clip we just showed you, and she wrote, "This will be very relatable for tons of first-time Trump voters who hated the guy in 2016 and 2020 and plan to vote for him in November." So this is just a random girl, and what she's saying is there were a lot of people, especially in 2016, probably some less in 2020, that hated Trump and then came around to Trump. You can find the video the day after the 2016 election, before Trump was sworn in, so the day after the election when he beat Hillary. I did a video. We didn't even have a studio yet at my house because we had just moved. I did a video in my backyard with construction noise in the back from my computer saying, look, I didn't vote for the guy, but let's see what happens. And then largely for 2 years, I saw a bunch of good stuff happen. Then I started meeting some of the MAGA people and everything else. And then I came around and voted for him in 2020. There were a lot of people like me on that, by the way. Influential people. Glenn Beck didn't vote for him the first time, did the second time. Ben Shapiro didn't vote for him the first time, did the second time. There are many other people like that, and beyond just public people, right? And then in 2020, more people woke up and started seeing what was going on. He did not become president, but we've seen a sort of widening of what the Republican Party is. It's not as sort of cold and stodgy as it was. It's a little more fun. A million times I've talked about going to these Trump rallies and seeing the Latinos for Trump and the gays for Trump and the blacks for Trump, and nobody cares because it's all united under the American flag. And dare I say, that is what our opponents hate the most. But I thought that having read that tweet from that random person, it's like we're all going through our own story right now. You, person watching this, you're going through your own evolution to some extent, right? Maybe you're at the end of the road already, but I know many people are not. So I thought it would be worth throwing back to my own evolution. This is back in 2015, the Why I Left the Left video. 2016, sorry. This was me in 2016, again, before having voted for Trump, but waking up to the craziness of the left. And I think in many ways, it mirrors what JD went through himself.
Do you believe in free speech? Do you believe that people should be judged by their character, not their skin color? Do you believe in freedom of religion? If you believe these things, you're probably not a progressive. You might think you're a progressive. I used to think I was. But over the last couple of years, the meaning of the word progressive has changed. Progressives used to say, I may disagree with what you say, but I'll fight to the death for your right to say it. Not anymore. Banning speakers whose opinions you don't agree with from college campuses, that's not progressive. Prohibiting any words not approved of as politically correct, that's not progressive. Putting trigger warnings on books, movies, music, anything that might offend people, that's not progressive either. All of this has led me to believe that much of the left is no longer progressive, but regressive. This is one of the reasons I've spent so much time on my show talking about the regressive left. So if you think people should be able to say what they think without being punished for it, that people should be judged by their behavior, not their skin color, and that people should be able to live the way that they want to live without government interference, then there's not much left on the left for you.
Okay, so I know that you guys have seen that before, and many of you were going through that perhaps before me or just with me at the exact same time, or you're going through it to some degree now, or most likely you know some family members going through it right now. Phoenix just mentioned to me that he watched that. That was 8 years ago. He was in high school. They showed that in the theology class that he watched 8 years ago. Look at you, and now executive producer of the Rubin Report. Really, life is something. Never stop following your dreams, people. But the point is, all of us change. All of us evolve. And I think now what is happening with this new Republican Party is that it is evolving into something that stands much more for America than just sort of a narrow set of political views. And that's what we have to expand upon. So now I want to flash back to July of 21. This was one of the first interviews that JD Vance, who was not even senator at the time, he was running for senator. And he sat down with me. We did it on Skype because it was the middle of COVID, unfortunately. But here he was, I think, making a great argument for how the parties were starting to shift.
Carlson, talk about another guy who's sort of, an East Coast WASP in the classic sense, but I think identifies with blue collar folks in a very deep way, and obviously focuses a lot on them in his show. So I think there are actually a lot of us out there who think the purpose of the Republican Party should be to better serve its voters. But I think they're all on the right at this point. I mean, there were maybe a couple of blue dog Democrats even 5-10 years ago. They all got primaried. They all got effectively kicked out of the party, and they're just clearly not welcome there anymore. So if they exist at all, they're sort of on our side of the aisle.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been saying. I know a few of these people, and I think it's kind of a worthy fight if you want to still say you're a Democrat and try to, do something as the house is burning down. But it just doesn't seem like it could work to me. Are you surprised how radical the left has gone, that there is no room for these people? I mean, I guess as someone running for Senate now, you're kind of excited. It's like, yeah, come over here. We're all right.
I'm definitely surprised and a little startled by how crazy the left has gone over the last 10 years. I mean, in part, this is a consequence of demographics, right? The left is basically the party of upper middle class and upper class elites, and then some working class minorities who are sort of still along for the ride on the Democratic Party. But really, those folks don't have a ton of influence in the party, right? So it's partially just sort of who is leading the left. I think it's like, professionally educated people who went to Ivy League schools who tend to have pretty radical views about politics because of it.
Okay, so the reason I wanted to show you that clip, because it illustrates that while the media right now is going to tell you he's scarier than Trump, and don't worry, we'll get to some clips on that in just a second, this guy was largely, he was an anti-Trump moderate. Okay, so do not listen. You shouldn't be listening to anyone on the mainstream anyway, but do not listen to anyone that's like, he's hardcore MAGA, evil, racist, blah, blah. He was not even for Trump first time around, but you know what they will do, right? They will just twist and twist and twist and twist. I want to show you another interview that I did with him. This was 2 years later, now having become senator from Ohio. And a lot of people have been trying to figure out, well, what does a sort of modern Republican stand for? Is it just that the government has no role in anything, or that the government does have a role when needed? And what really put or shined the light on that was, what do we do about big tech? And here I am in DC talking with JD about what he believes the role of government should be when it comes to something like big tech infringing on your First Amendment rights. So big tech, I mean, are we going to fix any of this? Elon obviously is at least loosening some of it, and we're getting a little more info. But
yeah, so this is another area where I actually, this is one of the few places where there are enough Democrats where you might actually be able to do something big here in the Senate. On the House side, I think that they're going in interesting directions too. But to me, I continue to believe that we have to think about this as an antitrust problem. The technology companies are individually too powerful within their markets. And what they have ended up doing is imposing this ideological regime from the top down. And look, this is a little bit weird, I think, for a lot of conservatives, a lot of people who believe in the free market, right? They say, well, these are private companies. And my counter argument to that, Dave, is always, well, they're private companies, but they've achieved their market power through an unbelievable accumulation of government favors, of legal carve-outs, of liability protections. So these are behemoths created by the power of the U.S. federal government. And I think they can only be curtailed by the power of the U.S. federal government. So I really think that we need to go into trust buster mode, break up some of these companies, make them less powerful. Some of this, even the threat of antitrust, I think is making these companies less ideological and less progressive. Obviously, Twitter is, I think, a really good thing. I think what Elon did is frankly heroic. But you still have Facebook, you still have Google, which is probably the single biggest problem. I think the threat of action is making these companies a little bit less crazy. But I think real action would restore some sanity to our process.
Okay, so we don't have to dive into the big tech debate right now, but I just wanted to show you one clip that shows you a little bit of his governing philosophy, that you do use government occasionally to do certain things. Now, of course, the next phase of all of this is that I believe sometime in September there will be a VP debate. It will be JD Vance versus Kamala Harris, short of the Democrats doing something absolutely insane at their convention in the next couple of weeks, which certainly is possible. But I will get to a couple things between JD and Kamala in just a second. Let me talk to you guys about 1775 coffee. Guys, are you a sleepy Joe who has zero cognitive performance? Scared of walking upstairs without being worried you're going to fall down? Do you struggle to muster the focus and brain power for such basic things in life, such as eating ice cream or riding a bike? You need to stop drinking woke liberal coffee and start your day by drinking Rumble's very own 1775 coffee. Never mind that it'll be the best tasting coffee you've ever had in your life. It's seriously good. It's also ethically sourced from a family farm in the high altitude mountains of Bolivia. So instead of waking up tomorrow morning and drinking your mold infested, big corporation owned woke ideology coffee that's probably making you sick from the pesticides it's sprayed with, try Rumble's 1775 coffee, support freedom of speech, and build a parallel economy that actually values you. Go to 1775coffee.com right now and pick up your first bag. Use code Rubin to save 10% off your first order. My favorite roast is dark. Everyone knows that. You won't regret it for a moment. Level up your morning routine with a bag of 1775 coffee and sleep well at night knowing your hard-earned dollars are going towards supporting freedom-loving creators like me on Rumble, as opposed to the woke mob. And now back to me. Okay, let me throw to a tweet here from Greg Price. The JD Vance versus Kamala Harris debate is going to be a beatdown unlike anything we've seen since the Seahawks-Broncos Super Bowl. I had to Google exactly what the score was on that thing. That was 2013 Super Bowl. It was 43-8. So yes, that was a blowout. That was a beatdown. But yes, this is sort of where we're at right now. Virtually everyone knows what they think of Donald Trump, right? That's a thing. Virtually everyone knows that what they think of Joe Biden. That's a thing. Now we're just going on the assumption that it's still going to be Joe Biden and Kamala come the fall. The question now is, there's a little piece of the JD thing. People are going to want to find out more of him. I saw something last night that something like 80% of Americans are actually not familiar with him. So he has a whole introductory period now to go with America. People largely know what they think of Kamala, and if the polls mean anything, they generally don't think she's that bright. But let's flash back to just a couple weeks ago. Now, this is June 7th, 2024. So what is this? 5 weeks ago. Kamala's former comms director was on TV talking about JD Vance, and listen to this.
I think JD Vance would pose the greatest threat to Kamala Harris in some respects. I mean, he's an incredible debater. I think he has this quality that makes him seem palpable to that 1% to 2% that actually might vote, or that, that's undecided, that will actually pay attention to the debates, because most people don't pay attention to the debates. And I think he's just got a quality about him where he's super smart and sharp and quick-witted. I just think that, I think it's going to be a challenge to see the two of them face to face. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I think he's going to be the greatest threat to him.
That is quite an admission from Kamala's former comms director. He's sharp, smart, and quick-witted. Those are three things that have never been said about Kamala Harris. So what is that comms girl going up there saying that? And that's 5 weeks ago, having no idea that he was actually going to be the choice. But you can see You really can see it with JD Vance, and there's just evidence to prove it, the way he has fought the media all along, or the way we've played some of the clips over the last year or so at congressional hearings where he just doesn't take any BS from Fauci or anyone else, that the guy is playing to win. And check this out, because Kamala did call him yesterday, apparently. VP Kamala Harris called Senator JD Vance after Trump announced him as his running mate. JD Vance did not answer and instead sent her to voicemail where she left a message, ABC reports. So it is possible that that was not intentional. He didn't know who was calling. He maybe doesn't have Kamala already saved in his phone. But there's something, I don't know, I think it sends a certain message out there, like the VP calls you and somehow ends up leaving a voicemail. And here's a video of ABC acknowledging that she did, in fact, leave a voicemail.
Rachel, you have just learned that the Vice President Kamala Harris has reached out to JD Vance, and they will very likely face each other in a debate.
Exactly, David. I just talked to a source who confirms that Vice President Kamala Harris did, in fact, call Ohio Senator JD Vance after Trump revealed that it would be his running mate. I'm told that they did not connect, but I'm told that Harris did leave a voicemail.
Look, this can be a little bit of insider baseball kind of stuff. And as I said, like maybe he literally wasn't available. Maybe he was in a meeting with Trump. Maybe he didn't know who it was and his phone was blowing up because it was just announced that he was VP. Like there could be a million reasons for it. But if he did actually know that Kamala was calling him, the current VP was calling him, and he didn't pick up, like it shows like we're ready for a fight. And this is what we need, right? And I can say that to the backdrop of what just happened to Donald Trump over the weekend, because as I said yesterday, this unity thing, it's fake, it's not real, it's being used against all of us that now have a chance to actually take this country back, not by killing people or anything else, but by restoring all of the goodness of the history of this country and our founding and all of the things that unite us under that flag. That's what we can do right now, and I hate to say it, Kamala, but you and Joe Biden do not represent that. There is a woman who works at the Washington Post, and the Washington Post is just, it's another one of those things like the New York Times, CNN, all the rest of them. It's just pure propaganda. But her name is Jen Rubin, with the same spelling as Rubin, and she puts out probably the worst take on anything ever, always. So if something happens, whatever she says, the reverse is usually true. So she tweeted this out. Kamala Harris waiting for the debate is like a kid eyeing a candy store. I just want to go on the record on video because I tweet it out a lot. Every time she tweets, I just tweet under it. I say, you are not my relative. We are not related. We've checked. I mean, we've done the 23andMe. We've done all this stuff. I am in no way related to this woman. And it's important that I just put that out there on video. I have nothing to do with this woman. That's it. I am not related also to legendary record executive Rick Rubin. That one would be cool. It would be, but no, that one's not true either. Anyway, let's talk more about sort of the reaction to JD Vance, because you can see it. Again, we've already illustrated he was not a Trump supporter. If anything, he was a little more like a blue dog Democrat, say 8 years ago. He is not an extremist by any measure or anything else, but the machine is about to go after him. Tucker Carlson was asked yesterday what he thought of JD Vance, and I thought his answer was quite interesting.
So now JD Vance is the VP pick, and I think every person who pays close attention has got to be thrilled by that. And if you don't know much about JD Vance, I'm not even going to make a case for JD Vance. I'm going to tell you what I just saw, which is that every bad person I've ever met in a lifetime in Washington was aligned against JD Vance. And I do think the negative case is often more powerful, because I know of myself, I do not think I'm a particularly good person. I have strong reasons for feeling that way. I don't always think that my side is right. I know for a fact I have been wrong many, many times. And I hope to correct and be honest about my error. So it's not like I think that, I'm always, God's always on my side. Sometimes I'm not on God's side. But I definitely know who's representing the other side. It's a lot easier to tell who the people who are only in it because they like, killing other people in pointless wars. Like, I know who those people are. And their odor is so powerful that I can smell one when he walks in the room. And every single one of those people in a line that would extend from Milwaukee to Chicago was lined up over the last week to knife JD Vance. Not on personal grounds. He's a perfectly nice guy. He's like one of the only members of the Senate with a happy marriage. True. but because they thought he would be harder to manipulate and slightly less enthusiastic about killing people. That's it. That he would be an impediment to their exercising power. And boy, they went after him in a way I've just kind of never seen, which I think happens every day in Washington. I just don't have a vantage on it because I'm far, far away and grateful to be.
Okay, so you can agree with Tucker there or not, but I think it's interesting in that what we've gone from is, again, a guy who was anti-Trump, literally called him Hitler, has had a mea culpa, apologize for it, and now there's a certain set of what Tucker's really talking about there is there's kind of the deep state people that want to keep us in perpetual war, and those are the ones that don't like this. I will show you more over the next couple of weeks of his great speech at NatCon that we showed you just a bite of before. But he talks about what his foreign policy is, and it's very much in line with what Trump's has been, which did bring us to, say, peace deals in the Middle East and no war in Russia, Ukraine, et cetera, et cetera. But what Tucker's really talking about there is that he knows the people in D.C., he's been in D.C. forever, and sort of the worst type of people are the people that hate JD Vance. So now let's jump over to CNN. That's a hell of a segue for you. And they are freaking out. And they're doing something that we've seen a million times. So they're never going to stop doing the same tricks because the tricks always work on a certain set of people. But this was a trick that they did when DeSantis was hot at the beginning of the primary thing. What did they always do with DeSantis? He's worse than Trump because he's Trump with a calculator. He's more effective than Trump. He's going to be much more dangerous. Well, they're already doing it with JD. Here's Van Jones on CNN.
You know, part of the reason that JD Vance matters isn't for these kind of short-term electoral calculations. He matters because of what he means to the Republican Party long-term. This is cementing a kind of nationalism. Yeah. Now, Trump, to your point, I agree with you, he's an instinctive, impulsive, intuitive nationalist. JD Vance is an ideological nationalist. That's a much more dangerous virus because he can polish this stuff and make it seem palatable to people. He can sell this stuff to Silicon Valley. He can sell this stuff other places. And what it does is it locks the Republican Party on a pathway that I think is dangerous for the world. Again, the Ukrainians are now in deep trouble. NATO is now in deep trouble. Trump he could have gone with a Nikki Haley and signaled to the world, hey, listen, I got to give stuff to my base, but I'm not going to abandon the world. This pick is a horror on the world stage. So JD Vance matters because Donald Trump is pointing the Republican Party in a very scary direction for the long term.
So you see it, guys, like you see it so obviously. He did exactly right there what I said and what they were doing against DeSantis, right? That's what he said. He was like, Trump's an impulse guy, but JD gets it ideologically. That was the same thing with DeSantis, right? Trump's an impulse guy, but DeSantis really gets it. He's a true conservative and he's meaner and everything else. And now they're just applying all of that to JD. And by the way, it's just such nonsense when they say, oh, well, if it had been Nikki, as if you wouldn't have been doing the same thing. Right? Like, of course they would be doing the exactly same thing. They would be saying, oh, and now he chose warmonger Nikki Haley instead of going more isolationist. Like they flip everything every which way because sadly, they don't really believe in anything other than attaining power through the narrative. That really is it. But now that was just CNN, and CNN is what it is. Now let's jump over to the televised mental institution known as MSNBC, which is a collection of people who are paid to lie, and here they are very upset by JD Vance.
I mean, Donald Trump just selected somebody for his vice presidential running mate who tweeted this. Today is not just some isolated incident, and this is after, of course, the tragedy that happened on Saturday. The central premise of the Biden campaign is that President Donald Trump is an authoritarian fascist who must be stopped at all costs. The rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination. So, yes, I think we do always need to give people a bridge to do the right thing, and maybe this is a moment for that. But that is the person who has just joined the ticket with Donald Trump, and I think it's important not to forget that either.
And I think, the choice of J.D. Vance had not been announced when J.D. Vance tweeted that out. And so there was still a possibility, if we were going to have like a change of course here as a country, once he said Democrats did this, Democrats, the word there,
Joe Biden did this.
Led directly to is the phrase that he used there, right? Once he said that and blamed it in a partisan way like that, there was an option in the Republican Party and in the Trump campaign to then not pick J.D. Vance.
But let's heed Joy's warning. Let's not memory hole who Trump is. It's probably why he picked him.
Yeah. It probably helped him.
Yeah.
Well, J.D. Vance, I think, widely considered to be the most radical choice.
does not signal that Trump is trying to soften any edges. And the only person who was more excited than JD Vance this afternoon was Vladimir Putin.
Guys, you really just have to understand, there was no choice that Donald Trump could have made that they would not have said the exact same thing or figured out some way to frame it like that. When Psaki's reading that tweet by JD post-assassination attempt, everything that JD wrote is right. You guys have run around for years calling him Hitler, calling his supporters Nazis. What did you think was going to happen? So he was completely right. And we should be able to look at the people who have ginned up so much hate and say, maybe you're somewhat responsible for this. Maybe you're somewhat responsible for the tenor in the country. And had he not done that, had he just gone quiet, right? He's just said, it's pretty bad what happened to Trump, but I just don't want to say much more right now. You'd still hate him, right? Because you hate the other side. That's how the game works. And speaking of the game, Joy Reid, who's not wearing the wig anymore. What happened to the wig? We do not know. I will pay for Joy Reid's wig. I got 10, somebody, where's the makeup guy over at MSNBC? I got 10 grand. If you can get me, I will wear Joy Reid's wig on this show, $10,000. I think, can you make a call or something? We're going to see if we can get on that. Anyway, she done gone flipped her wig. She doesn't have the wig anymore. And here she is. She's very upset now that they almost killed Donald Trump, and we might start thinking that he's the victim in all this. The guy who has the blown off ear. It would be a shame if he was thought of as the victim.
Universal kind of reaction that I'm getting, whether it's civilians or professionals, is really a deep concern and lack of confidence in not us at this table or us at MSNBC, but us as the media writ large. And a fear that what's going to happen now is that the Republican Party will do what they do. They're in the middle of a campaign. The convention started today. But the media will acquiesce to trying to convince people that the things they've been experiencing for the last 5-6 years didn't happen. That the greatest purveyor and promoter of political violence, really, since anyone can remember, since George Wallace, I think, the people are concerned and expressing concern that we won't be the guardians of memory and that we will allow Donald Trump, as he is, bathed in the glory and grandeur of his party, to rewrite himself as both a hero and a victim.
It is also our job to point out the difference in the response when Paul Pelosi was bludgeoned with a hammer. There was not a universal condemnation of that act of political violence.
What this really is a hardening of our politics, a coarseness of our politics. And I got to tell you the truth, I honestly know we can lay more of that at the foot of Donald Trump than we can of Joe Biden.
What did she just say? She's the guardian of what?
Memory.
Yes, those people, that's the worst Marvel movie ever. We're the guardians of memory. Joy Reid and Jen Psaki and the other crazy woman and that lunatic over there, the guardians of memory. It's just, of course, everything they're saying is exactly what they've done. Yes, Donald Trump has been the #1 promoter of political violence. Whose side is it that did the Summer of Love, Antifa? Whose side is it that did all of the BLM violence? Whose side is it that over the last few months has been burning down stores and attacking people on the streets and going to Jewish neighborhoods to attack people in the name of Hamas, a terrorist organization? It's the Democrat base. You guys do all of this, but I know, Joy Reid, you don't have a mirror, and maybe that's why you lost the wig. But it continues because MSNBC, it's such an obvious clown show. We couldn't get to this yesterday, but it was amazing. MSNBC yesterday, they pulled Joe Scarborough off the air yesterday post-assassination attempt because they knew how incendiary he's been as it relates to Donald Trump. Check this out. This is from Byron York, chief political correspondent over at the Washington Examiner. It's a huge day in politics, and MSNBC has pulled Morning Joe off the air. They're apparently worried that the Morning Joe crew might say something inappropriate about the Trump assassination attempt, and there's a bit from CNN on this as well. The decision by MSNBC to leave one of its most recognizable programs on the sidelines amid a seismic politics-driven news cycle, with the Republican National Convention getting underway in the wake of Saturday's shooting at Trump's campaign rally, is certain to raise eyebrows. A person familiar with the matter told CNN that the decision was made to avoid a scenario in which one of the show's stable of 24+ guests might make an inappropriate comment on live television that could be used to assail the program and network as a whole. Given the breaking nature of the story, the person said it made more sense to continue airing rolling breaking news coverage in the fraught political movement. Do you realize how insane that is? I mean, the man he's not a journalist, right? They have this ridiculous show with all of these Democrat activists. We've pointed out all of the hypocrisy and just weeks ago lying, saying that people were effing idiots if they didn't think Joe Biden was smarter than ever and everything else. But on basically the most important day of his career, the day that he's back in studio, the Monday after an assassination attempt, they're like, you know what, you're actually not very good at your job, and they pulled him off the air. Anyway, he's back today. They gave him a one-day timeout like this is third grade, and he's not happy about what they did to him yesterday.
I wanted to briefly talk to our friends and viewers that watch us every day, and talk about what happened yesterday. We were told in no uncertain terms on Sunday evening that there was going to be one news feed across all NBC News channels yesterday. The Today Show would be Lester Holt, other people that you worked with on Sunday, and that was going to be one news feed across all NBC News channels, that we were going to stay as a network in breaking news mode throughout all day yesterday. That did not happen. We don't know why that didn't happen. Our team was not given a good answer as to why that didn't happen, but it didn't happen. We were also told it was going to happen throughout the day. And I guess after there was such a strong blowback about yesterday morning, I guess they changed their plans. And so those plans changed as well. So it didn't. We've talked about it off the air. We'll talk about it on the air because we talk about everything on the air. We were very surprised. We were very disappointed. And if we had known that there wasn't going to be the one news feed from NBC News across all NBC News channels, Willie, we obviously would have been in yesterday morning. And let me just say, next time we're told there's going to be a news feed replacing us, we will be in our chairs.
We'll be sitting here.
Yeah, and the news feed will be us, or they can get somebody else to host the show.
Yeah. Oh, what a threat. What a threat. Oh, my God. You know, it's so funny, too, because the second those two are fired, which it's coming soon enough, like, they're going to get divorced so quickly. You think they're going to just sit there in the morning at a desk looking at each other while drinking coffee, talking about the news? You could see it. It's so absolutely hilarious. But what would be the equivalent? I don't have a boss, right? Like, I run this thing. But Phoenix, he's my executive producer. That would be the effect of yesterday morning if Phoenix had called me in the morning and been like, Dave, we're not doing a show today. You just say some weird stuff, and we're just not going to do a show for one day. We'll come back to work tomorrow. It's completely insane. Anyway, let's just continue with the media, because I think the other part of what is happening here and why I'm trying to frame the show this way and why I generally do the show this way with so much media exposure is that if we can get over the lies of the mainstream media, we can get to the other side of the thing that we are all in. Here is Donald Trump Jr. just doing a bang up job with some hack MSNBC reporter going after his dad just yesterday at the RNC.
What is that change going to look like, Don? What practically, your father as president, I think you would even say, was a divisive figure. What's it going to look like in the second term?
I don't think he was a divisive figure at all. I think the media created divisiveness around him. They lied about Russia collusion. They said he was a traitor. They went after him in every which way possible. If the media actually starts being an honest broker, talking about the things that he did, the prosperity he brought, the peace deals that he signed around the world, rather than the disaster that we're living right now, I think you'd do everyone in the country a big favor.
I know immigration's important to him. I covered the family separation crisis closely. Will we continue to see policies like separating 5,000 children deliberately from their parents?
You mean the Obama administration?
You know they didn't do that, sir.
Okay, sure.
Will there be a second family separation policy?
It's MSDNC, so I expect nothing less from you clowns. Even today, even 48 hours later, you couldn't wait. You couldn't wait with your lies and with your nonsense. So just get out of here.
That's it, Junior. That's the attitude you have to have. Enough of this nonsense. Of course, the family separation thing was done under Obama, and the media didn't say a damn word about it, and AOC didn't pretend to go to a site where they had these families and cry on the outside, but more and more people are waking up. So let's move for a moment from the sort of pure political vertical of this to the sports world, because we've been showing you clip after clip for the last year or so of people across sports, football players, basketball players, a lot of UFC guys waking up. These are not traditional conservatives by any stretch of the imagination, but waking up and turning towards Trump. So here is Dana White, who's the president of UFC. Obviously, he's on Pat McAfee's show on ESPN talking about just sort of the heart that Trump represents right now. And I think this is the thing that's attracting people. It's not necessarily, oh my God, he has all of the policies. There is something else as it relates to Trump, and we all can see it now.
How is he? And what does your week look like? And was there ever a thought of him going to UFC Denver?
No, he was never going to UFC Denver. I was on a plane to Italy. So he wouldn't go to the UFC unless I was there, number one. Number two, I've been saying this forever about this guy. He is one of the toughest, most resilient human beings that I have ever met in my life. And let me tell you what, everybody wants to act like a tough guy, right? Everybody wants to act like a tough guy. Well, when the goes down, you find out who tough guys are and who tough guys are not. This guy is the legitimate, ultimate American badass of all time. You know, the guy takes a shot at him, he goes down, he stands up, and then he starts chanting to the crowd and you know, fight, fight, fight. I literally was blown away. I called him as soon as I landed. I called him and he answered, and he was already home from the hospital. And we talked for like 30 minutes. Pat, I'm telling you, I have never known a human being like this in my life. He is literally one of the toughest, most badass guys of all time. And listen, you don't like him. You can say whatever you want about him. It is undebatable now. Literally undebatable. This sniper tried to take a shot at him and missed him by millimeters. A bullet through the ear. I had a buddy in Boston when we grew up, and a bunch of guys tried to kill him one night outside of a bar. And he was never the same again. He was never the same. He literally moved out of South Boston and went down South Shore and was never the same again mentally after that happened to him. This guy's almost 80 years old. The guy tried to blow his head off, and to have the reaction that he did when he got up. This guy's been a friend of mine for 25 years. He's one of the greatest human beings I've ever met. He's an unbelievable friend, and he is forever now the ultimate American badass. That picture that you just showed will go down in history 100 years after we're dead.
And the reason I wanted to show you that clip was because that is now what I think a whole new set of people will be latching onto. People who don't agree with him perfectly politically or don't like some of the tweets, but now they're seeing something else. That the man almost had his brains blown out, missed it by 1/4 millimeter or something like that, and then got up and had that wherewithal to chant. And then he's at the convention right now and everything else. And here he is at the convention with the bandage on his ear. Right. Okay, so I want to throw to two more things here. This is the day after the election of 2020. Now, obviously, the election wasn't decided till a little bit after that. I had come around and I was voting for Trump this time. And this is just a quick 20-second clip or so of what I was arguing Trump actually represented at that time. As I said this morning, I think Trump will represent a saving of liberalism as well as conservatism. And in 2024, you're going to get such a cool, interesting, diverse crop of Republicans, and then maybe the real reset of the country can happen. So we're going to probably have 4 kind of crazy years here. Okay, so my point there was day before the election, my hope was that Trump was going to win and then there would be this full-on reset. Now, Trump didn't win. Obviously, we have had 4 crazy years. But this tension between liberalism and conservatism, that is what Trump now represents, because that's what America represents, and that's what people see right now, which is why a guy like JD Vance, who largely would have been considered a blue dog Democrat, say 8 years ago, I certainly would have been considered that, and many, many other people all these UFC guys, these athletes, they're all coming around to this thing, because the thing that we have to fight right now is the sort of crazy radical left that has been trying to destroy the country. So there is a widening happening right now, and Trump is saving conservatism. A very simple version, it would be the Supreme Court justices he's put on have been more conservative. He's saving liberalism because he's been a little bit softer on some of the social issues, right? So we all can see that, and that to me is what the actual representation of a positive vision for a future America can be. So we're almost at the end here, and that I got to jump on Piers Morgan in a moment. But speaking of one of those people that would not be thought of as a traditional conservative or Republican, another one from Colin Rugg, breaking, the Wall Street Journal reports that Elon Musk is donating about $45 million monthly to a super PAC supporting Trump's reelection. The Wall Street Journal cited people familiar with the matter. The news comes just days after Musk announced his endorsement for Trump. I fully endorse President Trump and hope for his rapid recovery. So now something's happening. Now something's happening, and nobody can deny it. That now more and more people from across political stripes, cultural stripes, and everything else are coming around to coalesce around this guy. And coalesce around JD Vance and all of that, but this new sort of wide tent Republican Party. So I was trying to think this morning, how do we end the show in a non-political way? Because I don't always like ending on politics. But what Dana White just said about Trump, that Trump is just going and going and going. And we ended the show yesterday with Trump talking about never quitting. Well, there's a personal part of this for all of us. If we all see that there's a chance in the future and we go to it, we will better ourselves. And if we better ourselves, then we'll better the political system. The political system is not going to better us. Jordan Peterson.
And that's what's happening to the young people that we see who are adrift. They're taught to be nothing but self-conscious, to do nothing but think about their immediate needs, to refer to themselves as the locus of all things, and there's nothing you could do that would make them more miserable. It's identical with the instruction in misery. And you want to be outside yourself, serving a higher purpose, and maybe you're cynical about that, but you can think about it technically. Well, why do you bring a fork to the table? Well, so that you can put a plate beside it. And why do you put a plate at the table? And it's so that you can set the table to serve your family, to share food, to bring together the people you love in something approximating harmony as a microcosm of the entire cosmic order. And you can replicate that at every level of complexity, all the way up to what's at the pinnacle. And that's all real. And so is what's at the pinnacle. And we've forgotten all of that. And as a consequence of forgetting that, we've forgotten the responsibility that we need to bear in our life to make our lives bearable. And we've forgotten the meaning and the adventure and the purpose and the significance and the earned self-regard that goes along with that sacrificial attitude. And we've forgotten to tell our children the same thing. And we could remember who we are. We could remember who we are. And that's what this conference was for, to remind people, everyone who attends, who you are, right? You're the
Guys, that's the point. Remember who we are, not only you, but us as a nation. That is what we seemingly have a chance to do right now. Unfortunately, there's no post-game show today because I got to be on Piers Morgan. We're late, apparently, so no post-game. But we will be back tomorrow, and I'll be on Piers Morgan. I suppose it's live, so I'll be on right now for those of you who have an internet connection and some sort of video screen in front of you. Goodbye.